Hi, and welcome to 21st Century Saints. I'm your host, Alana Wilson Bryce, and this is my co host, Jane Christie. Today is Sunday, the 9th of May, 2021, and today's episode is a Mother's Day special.
Excellent. So, Alana, this is a Mother's Day special, but it's not Mother's Day in the UK.
It is not.
It is not. So, we're going to talk a little bit about Mother's Day and, um, yeah, just I I have lots of thoughts on this that I kind of wanted to share with you all. I'm just going to make sure that we can. Okay, so what I wanted to do before we get really kicked off is if we can just invite you all, if you have anything that you want to ask about, jump into the chat. So on YouTube or on Facebook, the chat. We've already got some shout outs for all the mothers out there. So hey to all the mothers. But yeah, it's not Mother's Day in the UK. Um, so I'm using. Alana, we've already done Mother's Day.
We have.
We've already had it. And so it should be no big deal that some other country is celebrating Mother's Day. And we mean it as wonderful, but you know I have big feelings about Mother's Day, right?
Absolutely. I know it's a day that you don't look forward to,
Yeah.
especially going to church on Mother's Day is a big thing for you.
Yeah. It's really church Mother's Day that I struggle with because I and I think my mother is probably watching this, so I just want to give a big shout out to my mother. Um, I yeah, it's not Mother's Day itself. Like I think it's quite lovely when your kids go to some effort and sending little cards and stuff like that. It's super cute. But yeah, church Mother's Day. Yeah, I struggle with. Um
So, do you want to talk a little bit more about that? Or do you want to start from somewhere else?
yeah, well y- yeah, I guess the gist of it is that like I go to church for Jesus. And that's kind of what I'm hoping for a little bit. Except I feel like the most terrible person in the world because when I talk about how it's a bit painful, even with other women, um, a lot of the time they just don't really seem to seem to get it. Like some of the sacrament talks that have been because they're all Mother's Day talks on
Mhm. Yep.
sacrament, right? Um, and it's lovely. We're talking about motherhood and the difference mothers make in the world and um our angel mothers, and before you know it there's this motherhood pedestal, and
Yeah.
is- we're going to talk about some of the mixed feelings that we
Yeah.
have about
And,
that
and I
mothers.
guess, while you're talking about that, I have to get to thinking that that's not everyone's experience of having a mother
Right.
or being a mother. Um,
Mm,
you know, and I think like I would probably say that I'm one of these people who was quite naive to that. Like I just thought it's Mother's Day, it's wonderful. Let's praise mothers. Our mothers do a great job. They
yeah,
raise
it
us.
is,
And then I met Jane. And I
yeah.
kind of and I mean that in the nicest way.
Yeah,
But
because
I just
Jane's
mean
sitting on
I
Mother's
it
Day
made
like the
me stop.
Grinch.
Yeah, it made me stop and think that not everybody's idea of how they were raised by their mother or even their experience of being a mother is that pedestal that we feel mothers ought to be on. And I guess it really made me stop and think a little bit about that.
Yeah, I'm actually. Oh, it's so sweet. My mother doesn't really know how to work Facebook super well, so I'm just letting her know how to access it. Um, yeah, people. She's absolutely adorable. Um, okay. I think what we'll do if we dial it back a bit because I think our uniquely British our Britishness means that we do Mother's Day differently, or it's has a sort of different um genesis. It came about in a different way. So I welcome to class. we're going to do a little history lesson.
And this is
And
absolutely educational for me too, because when Jane said to me that British Mother's Day and American Mother's Day are different, I was like, oh, I did not
they're
know
totally
that.
different. They are totally different days, that actually have originally totally different purposes. So I am going to quote from. I'm going to quote from the British newspaper archive. Has got lots of. If you're in the church and you love your family history, or you love your historical research, all of the newspapers are on a centralized source now. So I think we can go like up to mid-40s at the moment, and it's all online to study, so we can see how it was studied. So here's some information from that page. While Mothering Sundays is now commonly combined and celebrated with the secular holiday of Mother's Day in the United Kingdom and Ireland, its origin, ready, is religious in nature and separate from that of American Mother's. Starting in the 1700s, individuals would attend a special service on the fourth Sunday of Lent. So that's why it changes every day. Every year here. So it's the fourth Sunday of Lent, and people would go to their mother church. So that's the church that you were baptized in. Everyone is baptized. Everyone's baptized here, right? You're Catholic, Protestant, whatever. But you go back to your mother church because people had to work away. People were working in service. You're working in different areas, and on this day you would return to your mother church, and it's also an opportunity to see your actual mum, which is quite nice too. So the activity became known as being a mothering. So that's why it's called Mothering Sunday. It was a day off for domestic servants, so they could visit their mother churches with their whole families, including their mothers. And historically, the time of year when working labour contracts would end would signal the return of labourers and domestic servants to their home parishes. Mothering would fittingly fall on the Sunday following that. So it became commonplace to bring a gift to your little mum. And in Scotland, and I think the north of England as well, traditionally, it would be carlings. So they're kind of I think the clothing maybe we've got to now is like some kind of pancake, like some kind of scone or something like that. And yes, totally different from American Mother's Day. But around about between sort of like the 20s, the 50s, when Mother's Day became a thing, it's become the same, right? So we don't in Scotland, we don't all say let's go back to church. It's Mother's Day. It is the day where we celebrate motherhood. But it's just interesting to know that there is that difference. Are you fascinated by that? Did I educate you?
I'm muted, sorry. Yes, absolutely. I've got you back now. Just for a bit there,
well,
your picture was a bit robotic, and that was seemed to be back
now.
Okay.
I
could hear you fine.
Guys,
Absolutely sounds
my
fine.
internet is my internet. I promise we are fixing these issues. Just hang tight.
No, like me. I could hear you absolutely fine.
Oh, that's good. That's awesome. So yeah, so that's the history of Mother's Day, and I don't know. We put mothers right up on pedestals. We not just in the church. This is not a Mormon thing, but I don't know if maybe there are. I don't know if there are many other churches that would have a whole day service that really is built around motherhood. I mean, it's not in the handbook. We don't have to do it, but it just kind of works out that way. We emphasize motherhood. We emphasize divine roles. We emphasize all of the things that come with it. If you're not a mother, you're preparing for motherhood, or you're teaching others about your motherhood experiences. It's very, very intense.
I
So
mean,
yeah.
I guess, when you think about that, just obviously, I know we're going to get into some stories. I often think of there's a woman within our ward who also finds it very painful, because she lost a child.
Mm, yes.
So there's that aspect of it as well, as where it's sometimes that constant reminder that they no longer have their child with them.
Mm. And it's wonderful. Just to let the audience, just a reminder for the audience that our dear Alana still has allergies, and you have been an absolute hero. Um, Sorry, I am just trying to my poor little mum, because we're going to be speaking about my poor little mum in a second, who's so desperately trying to come on and support our daughter. I'll just quickly send this link out. Okay, there we go. So yeah, our Alana still has allergies, and you're battling away like a hero. But yeah, I think this is the moment in our conversation where it is going to get painful. So I spoke to my mum before we were preparing for this. So earlier today, just so that my mum would know that we were going to be talking about some pretty painful things. And it's such a wonderful thing that whenever you're speaking, Alana, about the woman in the ward who her child died. What's really tough is that we really need to fix, like, as members, what we do is we start fixing her pain. And so we reinforce the doctrine of eternal families, and you're going to be able to see your child again. And that is so beautiful and reassuring. But also it's painful because you're right now. And I think we don't always let our not just women, but we don't always let them have that space to just hurt. So yeah,
Yeah, sorry about that.
even though there is incredible doctrine. Oh no, it's hey, I was
If I disappear,
reminding the
yeah, you
audience
know
about
that
your allergies.
I get a bit embarrassed sometimes that everyone's seen me like. I guess as well,
Well,
like on
the
the other
others never
aspect.
do have a
Oh,
daughter, so yeah.
yeah,
Yeah,
I
sometimes we need
guess.
to dash away. It's
Oh,
just
yeah, I guess as well. Like I was just thinking, not only the mothers who have lost children, but you also have people who have never had the opportunity to experience motherhood as well. And you
yeah.
presume. Well, I'm not saying everyone, but some people possibly presume that they maybe didn't want to be mothers, but there are some people who weren't able to have children, or who have never been able to find a
Men.
husband and have children. So you know do we consider this as we talk about motherhood on a Sunday, that there are people who
Yeah.
could be hurting and sitting there and find it very painful to hear these talks of how
Mhm.
wonderful it is to be a mother and have children, and when all they've ever
Mhm.
wanted is to have children but never had that chance.
Well, we do consider it, but in the same way as the grieving mother, we want to fix that. So we want to reinforce the teaching, the doctrine that we're going to be married and we're going to have eternal children. And the assumption is that every woman wants that, and that's what we're built for, and that's it's our divine role, right? And so what I'd like to do, because it can be such a beautiful teaching, but it's complicated. Like, my favorite phrase, it's complicated. So yeah, what I'm going to do is speak a little bit to that pain, um if that's okay.
Yeah,
So
sorry, I was just reading some of the comments there.
yeah, you're all absolutely, and please do share, um and join in the chat, because so just to kind of backtrack a little bit, this has been a really tough weekend for women
Oh,
to start.
absolutely, absolutely.
Um, and we're going to talk about some of those things that were really tough. So when we're talking about Mother's Day, this is not just about how we should celebrate Mother's Day or not, or how we should feel about Mother's Day, or digging into the complexity of that. We're gonna pull in some pretty major issues that have, yeah. And so I'm speaking, and I know you are too, Alana, from that place of pain. We spent much of yesterday, all of last night, just um,
Yep.
mourning our feelings. So for me, a little bit about my bio is that I didn't live with my mother when I was a child. So I have divorced parents. I didn't live with my dad either, although kind of technically I did. Um, and it wasn't one of those charming, amicable divorces. My mum had sort of remarried and has her family, and as far as I could see, it was like the dream. That's what you want. You've got a mum and a dad, and and I have a half brother. Um, Wonderful, wonderful. But I didn't get to live with them. And so I'm being raised by my dad's aunts. So they were always old to me. And I want to honor that, the fact that they would raise me and my brother um really selflessly. The fact that they were willing to do that. They had no children of their own. They were unmarried. So these two oh, I mean, the most Scottish, quirky characters that you could get. These were interesting women, and yeah, and so they did that for me. But also, they it was painful. So I would, and I prepared my mum for sort of me talking about this, because we are so close. My mum and I are so close. Um, but we didn't get to be together. And I know that my mum missed me. I know that I missed her. And we just, we just sit with that, because it's the way things panned out. That's what our family looked like. But when I was a child, I remember, like, one of my earliest memories, and it happened so often, was sitting all dressed up because my mum was going to come and visit. And I mean, I would be sitting at the window from so early in the morning, because this is the day my mum's going to come. And when she did, it was wonderful. But my memories are not of the times when she came, it's the times when she didn't. And now, I don't think for one second that what was happening is my mum just wasn't showing up when her kids were expecting her to. I think that as a kid, I think I had expectations that my mum was going to come and see me, and that was kind of reinforced by my aunts, who were like, "Well, yes, she should be coming to see you," and I would sit at the window, sitting on the back of a seat, um, and I would sit at the window for hours, and I would refuse to believe she was coming. No one would
Oh,
tell
bless you.
me that she wasn't coming. And, and there was no one to sort of redirect my thoughts. And so, well, if she didn't come today, then I must have made a mistake. So she'll come tomorrow. And
Oh,
so I would sit for whole weekends at a time, just waiting for my mum, with absolute confidence that she was going to come. And I never had a moment where I doubted her. I knew she was there, and I knew she wanted to see us, and we wanted to see her. So that is really informing a lot of my feelings as we talk today, um, about how painful this is. That feeling of looking for my mum. Alana, I have this thing where, if I have to wait for someone, if there's an appointment
yeah.
and anyone is
Causes you
coming, I
stress and
really
anxiety.
struggle.
Yeah. I've
Yeah,
experienced that firsthand.
I do you remember? Oh, guys, I flipped my lid one day because Alana was late. I mean, phew, I, I went like a crazy person. Um,
And obviously, for me, I guess it was because I had never experienced you like that before. Like, you were just my
mm,
best friend in the whole world, and I knew you had your difficulties, but I had never experienced that. So, and obviously, I'm dealing with my own mental health and anxiety. So,
mhm.
I then starts crying, and then you're feeling terrible, and then it
Yeah.
just became this vicious cycle. But at the end of it, we could still be friends because we realised it's just our mental health. It's just the way we are, and
Yeah. And we
but
were hugging and
yeah,
and this was all it sounds like so not a big deal, but it was a big deal for like about an hour. And then
yeah.
we finished
And don't
up.
get me wrong. I mean, to be honest, as you know, I don't like to be late for things. Like, I like to be
Oh, I
on
know,
time,
I
but
knew
just
that so
sometimes
stressed
things
you,
happen.
yeah. But it's
Um,
funny, these seemingly tiny experiences, and they really affect us. But what something that is just so special to me, and I say so again, my mum has said it's okay if we talk about this. So my mum's relationship with her mum was extremely problematic. Um, and when my mum had found that she was pregnant as a young girl, um, was miscarrying and couldn't tell her
oh,
mum,
bless.
and was in a position where, I mean, she honestly, she could have died. She could have died, and was so
Oh,
fearful to tell her mum, because her mum had made it perfectly clear that if you were in that situation, I would be violent towards you. I would hurt you.
oh,
And so, the young pregnant that young pregnant girl asking her mum a question like that. Um, yeah, my mum's joined us on chat, and I just want everyone to know how wonderful she is.
oh.
Um,
Your mum's just said,
so
"You tell it as it happened, my darling."
yeah, so I
We love you,
bless her
Mary.
for, she is so honest, and she is just so open to being vulnerable and things. So that was my mother's experience of motherhood. Um and so she, as a very young child, really a child, she recovers from that, marries my dad, has 2 children, of which I am the favorite and oldest, and then has to deal with processing incredible trauma in her own life. Incredible trauma. She has to process being alone. She has to process what I would say is postnatal depression. I mean, I
Yeah,
think as women we can recognize these things in each other now,
yeah.
and there was nothing for her. And so when my parents' marriage ended, I completely, understood. It's, I as a child, I just wished that that hadn't happened. But oh my goodness, it was the right thing for my mum. And then, and I'm going to mention this, but it seems, I'm aware that I'm being, really personal here, but it's just, I think it's important to frame what's happening this weekend. Um, and so Alana, again, who's just been with me during all of the rough times, is we have so much fun, but when it's the rough times, and you're just there, I appreciate it. And my mum is just there, and I appreciate it. And my so what would it be, like 3 years ago now? And I just broke. I just broke. Um, my dad had just totally cut me out of his life for no reason, and I didn't see that this was a pattern of behavior that had happened over my whole life until another family member mentioned this. And I mean, when I say it broke me, I mean it wrecked me. And so I remember speaking to my mum in the hours after I'm trying to process this. I think I spoke to you straight away, and the next day I
Yeah.
called my mum, and I was explaining what had happened. And of course, Mama Bear comes out, and my mum's telling me how wonderful I am. Not criticizing my dad, but just like, well, yeah, And I'm saying, Mum, I didn't see that this was who he was. I didn't even, whenever you're a kid, normal is normal. And I
Yeah.
took that to adulthood. And I don't get upset. I don't cry about things. But this one's really tough. And I remember saying to my mum, I know that when I was little and you were packing, knowing that you were going to leave, not just my dad, but you were having to make a choice to leave us. And I know how hard that must have been, but if you would have known that as a child, that I was on your side, that if I could, as an adult, have stood in spirit at your elbow as you did that, as you got ready to leave, then I would tell you to go, Mum. I would tell you to go. And the sound that my mum made when I said that to her, it was it was a wail and a mourning and a keening sound that came from her soul. And to have had that moment with my mum where I could be thankful that that's what she did for her, um, where we could stand as sisters as well as mother and daughter. I just, I just really, really appreciate her. Um, so
What a
I
good tune
want
to
to
be
frame
women.
that.
I'll do the crying for Jane.
And look, there's my mum is saying that she was an immature wee girl who couldn't handle her life. I mean, I don't know about that because as being in the situation and through the things that you had experienced, you were far from true. And I knew you were going to find it really tough to hear these things. I spoke to my mum because I couldn't tell her that story to her face. I've never been able to. I thought if she knows that I can't look her in the eye and tell her that I was waiting for her and that she didn't come because I know it will hurt her so much and I know that she would want to fix it and I know how hard that must be. But I want to re-emphasize that I am with you. I still support every choice that you have ever made and I love you. So is it okay then if whenever I go to church on Mother's Day, and here's a pedestal for the mums. And is it okay if it's complicated? Is it okay if when I think about motherhood, it hurts? And so then the focus becomes about me and about you, Alana, as the mothers that we want to be, right? Or we're being encouraged to be in. And that's wonderful. It's really, really good. But the one thing that all mothers and women have in common is Alana's speciality, right? The guilt.
Oh, absolutely. That is my definite speciality.
You when you work, you're guilty because you shouldn't be leaving them. But when you're not working, you feel like you're not providing enough. Alana's an independent parent, by the way, who just is this incredible example of motherhood. But again, it it hurts and it's complicated and your kids are your whole world. But also, here is what I want. I'm talking about my mum as a three-dimensional, an actual a human being with all of these experiences. I've only spoken about it as a mum. Now you're hearing about it as this strong woman who had the courage to leave a toxic relationship and who did very, very hard things. She is so powerful, and she has no idea. She still has no idea. And so part of my job is to reflect that back to her and make damn sure she knows it. But we don't get to hear sacrament talks about them, not just the mother, the woman. When did you have to go and rage cry in the bathroom? When I was talking with a friend the other week about the time that I chucked everyone in my family at the house. I had a very bad day. I told them all to get the hell out of my house, and my husband took the kids, and I went into the shower and had a rage cry, and I felt terrible, but I really wasn't doing very well within myself. They obediently left, and a couple of months later, I would read And my youngest, he would have been like 5. I was reading his schoolwork, and the story went, "This weekend, Mum told us all to get out of the house. My dad took us to McDonald's. We had a brilliant day. I love my dad." I'm like, "Are you kidding me? Are you kidding?" And, like, if we're talking about the mothers who sacrifice to raise their children, to do the laundry, to make sure they're clean and well and healthy, we don't talk about how postnatal depression hospitalized the mothers in the room.
Mhm.
We don't talk about how the real sacrifice
Yeah.
that they had to make.
See, I think
Not that
when you were
that isn't
talking
a
about,
sacrifice, you know what I mean?
yeah, I think when you were talking about all that there, like again, it gave me something to think about, and I guess, you know, I was young at the time, so I'm not going to carry that guilt. I'm not going to beat myself up for it. But I remember thinking, as I got a little bit older, like, how can any mother walk away from their children? Like, how it just, because obviously from a young age, I've kind of been that a kind of mother figure. I've been around my nieces, my nephews. I've felt that love. I've always had a great love of children, and I guess I do remember feeling like, how could any mother, like, how could they even think about leaving their children? Like, I couldn't in my head process that, and obviously getting older and obviously hearing that experience there, that sometimes we have to be mindful that sometimes we don't know the full story. Here's your mum who's trying to figure out, do I and stay with my children and stay in this toxic relationship, which is going to cause even more and more damage to my children, or do I make the really painful choice, here I go again, of having to walk out and leave my children? And as you told that story, like, I felt the pain that must have felt for your mum, because I can only imagine as a mother myself how difficult a choice. And I guess I now realise that I shouldn't have thought that way. And again, I don't say it in the sense of, how dare you say that? I was young, I didn't really think of it, I wasn't a mother, but to now realise that there are situations where people have no choice and they see it as the better and safer option for the children. And so I guess, again, people just have to be mindful of that before we look and judge people's situation.
And later on, when we'll have an episode where we go more in depth into our stories, but
I don't think I can
I
cope with this podcast tonight. Your mum's
oh
comment. I'm like,
guys,
here I go
we
again.
we've only just begun.
Oh,
Next is the angry part. We're going to get angry, but yeah, my marriage um broke down twice. We separated. We've been together this year for 25 years. Um
woo.
yeah. But yeah, back in the day, I also had to make the choice to leave my children. And I guess what I'm saying is, we don't get to honor the complexity and the pain. Some pain we can look at, some appropriate approved pain,
Yeah.
uh, but when it comes to actually sitting in that space. So the other aspect of motherhood that and again, I'm just so thankful for the people who've sat with me in this space, is being a mum with OCD. Now, I'm really aware that we have mothers who have had postnatal depression, and you know childhood, the act of physically having a child, but also the process of the biological imperative of motherhood. It changes our neurology. And I've wondered so many times, if I wasn't a mother, would I be more mentally healthy right now? Oh, absolutely I would, right? So I have OCD, and all of those, so it manifests as intrusive thoughts, and all of those intrusive thoughts center around keeping the people I love safe. So of course that's your kids, right? But those intrusive thoughts become, I'm going to kill my kid. I'm going to hurt my kid. What if I didn't do this thing and it's going to kill them? It's all of these very morbid, dark fears. And you know what? Since we're doing this, since we're going for it in this episode, um, yeah, here's the open heart stuff. So I remember, again, it's the time when I was very, very ill, when a few years ago, when I just broke. And I have, so my middle son has special needs, and we're almost like the one person, which is not healthy. But he needed me, and still does need, but at that particular time he needed me so fully. I had no identity out with that relationship. um and I remember trying so hard to get help, because as societies, we the point of societies is that we agree to, as a community, we're gonna work together to look after our disabled, our vulnerable, and our elderly. And when I'm seeing this not happening, and I remember bathing him, and I remember, again, I didn't know that this was OCD at the time, but I remember bathing him, and I remember I couldn't wash his hair anymore, because as I thought about putting my hands on his head, and he's like, what, 17 at the time, 16, 17, thinking of putting my hand on his head, I thought I could drown him in the bath. And I remember recoiling, because I thought, oh, we're such a burden to society, that that would solve all of their problems. And then I was consumed with disgust, because I was the mother who'd thought that. Um, what what kind of mother thinks a thought like that, right?
But again, we talked about that during my episode. I've been there. I've been there. I get it. And I'm pretty sure, I think, the way I carry my guilt, like, I'm the only mother who's ever thought that. Like, who, like you say, what kind of mother thinks of killing their child, or, but I bet you if we'd put a poll out there, everyone at some point, maybe not everyone, but a lot of people could say they've had those thoughts before.
Yeah, they're intrusive, dark thoughts, and they are very, very common, and we carry the burden of that around.
Yep, absolutely.
And it was such a freeing, thing to realize, okay, this is how the chemicals of my mind are working. That makes sense to me. But I was terrified to go near him again, because just in
Yeah.
case, what if you have OCD and a depressive episode at the same time? What if it all comes together in a perfect storm? And let's face it, it has. It has.
Yeah.
We've read about the women in the newspapers. I'm so sorry, guys. We hadn't even put up a trigger warning for this.
Yeah, we
So I
forgot.
do apologize.
Sorry
I,
about that.
I didn't anticipate we were going to go down this road, but yeah, so what does that mean then for your relationship going forward with a child if you
See, I guess I just did one more question. You may well have kind of covered this, and I've just not picked up on it. I guess I was thinking along the lines of, so you were saying, you didn't know at the time it was OCD. So were you just in complete disgust and horrified at yourself for having that thought, and did it change how you feel about that as time went on, when you realised that you had OCD, that you had a mental health condition? Did it change anything in your mind at that point, when you figured out, that's OCD, it wasn't fully me, just what were your thoughts on that?
having that as a diagnosis was incredibly freeing, simply because it then helps you address the guilt. I mean, it does not take it away. You
Yeah,
still
no,
have that.
absolutely.
But to know that it's a normal, okay, I'm saying normal, in its context. It's a thing. It happens.
Yeah.
I remember talking to a bishop about it, and I remember him shuddering as I told him that. And because it is horrific, and we don't talk about things like that, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, except here's the thing. I love the relationship I have with my son. I love being their mum, but also I hate it. But also I love it. And so any woman, I think, see, if we go from, if I experienced miscarriage, early miscarriage, so I don't understand how any woman can ever fully enjoy being pregnant again. I don't understand how any mother can I don't know, just how do we not live in fear? Because my whole experience of motherhood is that I'm going to lose you. I am afraid. I am going to, is it me? Is it someone, someone else? Can I just pop into this story that the advice that my Relief Society president at the time had given me, even though I hadn't shared the extent of that story, just when, you know, we're sort of talking about, yeah, things are just a bit intense just now. We have a lot of care needs, and I'm feeling a bit, you know, a bit down. The advice was, have you thought about putting him in a home? Now, this was like
It's that easy,
somebody.
right? You know me, I just call it as I see it, like, it's that easy. Let's just put my son in a home because I don't want to have to deal with him anymore.
It's because, and also, it's too hard for you to even listen to. You're not able to sit in that space. You have to be uncomfortable. So can't we just put you in a home? And
Mm,
and I remember just thinking, I can't talk to you. You
yeah.
can't, you know.
Yeah, I
But
remember
you know
when you
what I
told
need?
me that story, and I was
Yeah.
just horrified, horrified. You know, like it's kind of like, I guess, have you not, as a parent, do you not think I've thought of what ways I can get help? Do you not think I've thought, you know, like, and I guess this is where I go back to talking about church,
Mm,
that we don't have trained leaders within the church, and it's wrong because people say things with the, you know, I can't remember who the Relief Society president is, and obviously we don't mention names, but you know, is it really their fault? I mean, I've talked
no.
about this. Is it their fault because they're not trained to deal with
Mhm.
situations like this? But at the same time, in my mind, I think, you know, you have common sense. Well, I guess people say that not everyone has that, but you know, you have a heart. You have to think, to really, and I've said this before, that is it okay to sometimes have a silence between when someone speaks and giving an answer, to really process what would be helpful here. And I've experienced that firsthand also, where things have been said off the bat without
Mm.
thinking, and it's caused me more pain than helped me. So sometimes we have to pause and think before we say
Well,
things.
you know, this is the framing part of what we're going to talk about before we come to the angry part. Because I'm angry, just to make clear, in case you all don't get it. I, and I know I'm not the only one, fuming. I am in pain and it hurts. Because let me tell you what I need in that situation. This is what I need specifically. I'm not going to speak to the needs of other women. Some women need to detach from church. Some women need to rest. Medication. I needed medication. You know what I needed? I needed to hear you talking about Jesus. Can you pray? Could we maybe do that? Like, I mean, you're in Relief Society or you're in a sacrament meeting. Can tell me about Jesus. Pour some Jesus on my soul, which is broken in pieces right now.
Sorry, it's just the way you say it that makes me laugh. I'm not laughing at that. It's just like, Jesus, it's
Because,
all about Jesus.
well,
And
but
it is,
because
right? It should
you
be.
are my you're my friend. I have so many great friends, and I've got a wonderful mother. My husband is incredible, and my kids are amazing. But you know what? Y'all can't fix this, and don't try, because you're insulting my journey and you're insulting my grief. Don't try to fix me. But you know what can help is Jesus. I'm going to share a final thing, just because I feel like
Yep.
it's
No,
a
absolutely.
it's speaking to that gap that we need to leave. Um, when Ronan he self harms, when my kid self harms, and he had an experience of just complete breakdown, and it lasted. I mean, this would last for about 3 weeks solid, and he would. I get trigger warning, guys. He would bite himself, and the blood was, flowing, and he is just in meltdown. I've taken him into my room so I can hold him in bed and we can just have that space together. And he couldn't even bear me to touch. He was lashing out. He was hurting him. And I remember we're in this room, and I stand right here just looking over at him and thinking, I'm your mum. I should be able to at least comfort you. I should be able to at least hold your hand. I should be able to at least whisper, I love you. You can't hear a thing that is happening outside this meltdown that you're in right now. But Jesus does. He walked with you in that, and he knows. And I felt that so clearly in that moment. I felt that Jesus is the person who knows that thing. And it was more than that. It was that Jesus did that because he loves my son so much. He could have known through the Spirit. He could have, but he loved him so much that he was able to do that because I couldn't. And to know that someone was willing to do that for my kid, I don't think and this is why whenever something to my child, that's where I see the face of God. That's where I find Jesus. So it's okay if when I'm hurting and I'm in pain, can we talk about Jesus, please? And when we go to sacrament meeting on a Sunday, and it's lovely, I'm sure, for the people who find it lovely, but please, someone, will you hear this? It hurts so many of us. And if it doesn't hurt you, let me promise you, you know someone it hurts. It is so many of us. And so this is where we're going to come on to talking about another painful thing. So, this weekend has really sucked. Our dear friend of the podcast, Peter, we're going to be speaking to him later on, but we had received the news that that Peter has been invited to attend a church membership council. And so we're thinking about our love for our friend and our appreciation for the work that he's done. Many of us are sort of saying, well, we kind of thought it was on the cards. But then, as Alana and I were sort of sitting, processing, I'm gonna quote from the Salt Lake Tribune. This popped up on our timelines. In March, Fiona Givens, co-author with husband Terrell of The God Who Weeps, How Mormonism Makes Sense of Life, was invited to give a fireside to members in a Latter-day Saint young single adult ward in Harlem. More than 200 people signed on to the Givens presentation, according to someone who was there. Now, that's a presentation I would have absolutely rocked up to because the work that Terrell and Fiona Givens do is exceptional. Givens shared her studies and research into Heavenly Mother. And can I just jump in here just to add that that's her job? That's what she does. In fact, I'm going to interrupt here just Fiona, that she that she works for I'm having a mind blank. Do you know what?
I'm just keeping in mind, like, I didn't, when Jane told me this story, I didn't really know who Fiona Givens was. Jane obviously gave me a bit of background. Yeah. So I understand that not everyone may know who we're talking about, but that's okay.
Exactly. Yeah, she I think she's most known in sort of maybe progressive Mormon circles, or if you're a church reader, then you've probably seen their work. So The God Who Weeps is a really important one. So Fiona is engaged with the Maxwell Institute. She's an incredible scholar and researcher, and this is her job in this field. So Fiona Givens, I'm going to quote again from the Salt Lake Tribune. Fiona Givens shared her studies and research into Heavenly Mother. Okay, you ready to hear this, Alana? Ready for how beautiful this is? She shared her studies and research into Heavenly Mother, including multiple biblical accounts in which she believes a female deity is depicted as a pillar of light. She then made the connection that during the first vision, when Joseph Smith was visited by God the Father and Jesus Christ, he first mentions seeing a pillar of light. That shows that Heavenly Mother was also present during the first vision. We have a witness who says that Givens concluded that. In answer to a question, Givens discussed whether the gods might be synonymous with the Holy Spirit, and in the past, the writer has addressed this possibility. Is she part of the Godhead? One assumes that she is.
Can I
Givens told
just
us
take
what
you
we
back a
tribute.
minute? You said a word
Yeah,
there
sure.
that, like, I'm clueless.
Please
You'll
do.
find that I might ask for a lot. Synonymous or something you said there?
Yeah, so the same as, yeah.
Right, okay.
Yeah,
I just
the
wanted to
same
check
thing.
that, just
Yeah.
because there's probably more than just me out there right now that probably is like, I'm not sure.
No, I love it when you bring us back to basics, and I really appreciate that you do that. So basically, she's saying that when we talk about Heavenly Mother, is that the same thing as the Holy Spirit? And that's a really
Okay.
interesting
Yep.
idea, right?
Yep.
So in this interview, yeah, she says one assumes she is. So is she the Holy Spirit? The scriptural record is silent on this and so much else that we fall into the sticky quagmire of speculation. Now that's the thing I really appreciate about Fiona Givens is she makes it quite clear when she's speculating, when these are her opinions, and that the conclusions that she's presenting are conclusions that she presents as a result of her research, and that it's you can do what you want with that. Okay, I'm going to quote again from the Tribune. And again, I want to shout out to the incredible work that Peggy Fletcher Stack has been doing in this area. This whole article was wonderful, and we will link down to it in the show notes. After her recent remarks, several attendees complained. And now Givens is no longer employed by BYU's Maxwell Institute for Religious Scholarship and is turning down invitations to all speaking engagements. Givens declined to comment, and though BYU spokeswoman Carrie Jenkins confirmed Givens' departure, she would not cite reasons why, citing personal policies. Now, I really want to re-emphasize this whole article talks about, thank you, Debbie just has mentioned it's the Maxwell Institute. This whole article talks about modern, and it is a groundbreaking article that brings together a lot of the ideas. So I would encourage you to read it if you can. But for the moment, I'd like us to focus on that news that broke right before Mother's Day. On the eve of Mother's Day, Sister Givens has lost her job in this area because she's spoken about Heavenly Mother and presented an idea. And I'm just going to leave that for a second. Now, what really affects me is the fact, I don't think we can underline this enough, right? That's her actual job. That's what she does. That's what she's engaged at the Maxwell Institute to do. The Givens have been voices as as a couple and as individuals of incredible, beautiful ideas. They do incredible amounts of podcasting. They are researching. They are teaching. They are doing such tremendous work that for this to happen, I don't understand. And women all over the world in the church are devastated, absolutely devastated about this. And I just wanted to speak to that. There's another thing that I'd like to share, and I guess I'm doing this to maybe drive home the broad subject of sort of what we're talking about tonight. But I was really thankful that several friends have had shared an experience with me of a recent fireside, and one friend in particular, you know who you are. I just want to shout out and thank you for sharing this with us. One friend in particular has given me permission to talk about this. I feel like I almost want to give a trigger warning because this is so painful. So last weekend, Elder had given a fireside, and I'm going to quote the facts of what my friend has shared. She said, I was there at the women's meeting. It was a multi-stake meeting in Idaho Falls last weekend. On Saturday, they had a special women's meeting for all women 18 and older. Sister Renland spoke on having more faith. Then Elder Renland spoke. He started off his talk by saying, I don't know why I felt prompted to have this meeting for you sisters, but maybe one of you knows why. Then he says, I'm going to answer a question I received from a sister. I don't have a good relationship with my mother. Can I go to my heavenly mother? He paused, then said very directly, no. The whole of the rest of his talk was about how we have a heavenly Father and we need to go to him through Jesus Christ only. I guess I have probably just reached peak pain level here, but I feel like I want to really go on record in saying this. I've been blessed to be in. I've really been blessed to be in a church that has this beautiful doctrine. We have a heavenly mother. The doctrine is there, and I've spent so much of my life looking for my mother, waiting for my mother. When I found a church that talked about Heavenly Mother, to hear my bishop, who would consistently just mention it over the years, it gave me life. And it spoke to this part of my soul that there is nothing else that can fill but mother. Not just my earthly mother, who I love, but our mother in heaven. And I want to just really emphasize this. The pain of my heart, the pain of so many women's hearts this weekend. That if you will not allow us to speak or to talk about our Heavenly Mother, then you will hear us mourn. You will have to listen to our pain. Because we have a Heavenly Mother who doesn't need protected by you because she is Mother God. Alana, would you be okay to maybe share the poem?
Yep, I'll give it my best shot if my cough allows.
And just to sort of let everyone know that this is a poem from Sister Carol Lynn Pearson, who has helped us connect.
Okay. So this is called A Motherless House. I live in a motherless house, a broken home. How it happened, I cannot learn. When I had words enough to ask, where is my mother? No one seemed to know. And no one thought it strange that no one else knew either. I live in a motherless house. They are good to me here, but I find that no kindly patriarchal care eases the pain. I yearn for the day someone will look at me and say, you certainly do look like your mother. Apologies. I walk the rooms, search the closets, look for something that might have belonged to her. A letter, a dress, a chair. Oh, would she not have left a note? I close my eyes and work to bring back her touch, her face. Surely there must have been a motherly embrace. I can call back for comfort. I live in a motherless house, motherless and without a trace. Who could have done this? Who would tear an unweaned infant from its mother's arms and clear the place of every souvenir? I live in a motherless house. I lie awake and listen, always for the word that never comes but might. I bury my face in something soft as a breast. I am a child crying for my mother in the night.
We first of all, thank you, Alana, for for reading that. I know it was not only just emotionally difficult, but with with your allergies, I know it was physically difficult too. So thank you for doing that, and especially thank you, Sister Carol Lynn Pearson, who has helped us to as women in the church to be able to hear the voice of a mother in heaven through her poetry and through her words, and who has given us the voice, amplified our mourning and keening of looking for our mother. I shared the story earlier of waiting at the window for my mum, knowing that her hearing that for the first time would hurt, knowing that it causes my mother pain. And you know what? She's good with that pain. That's who she is. She is constant. And as much as we talk tonight about mothers on pedestals, her journey reminds me of the longing that I have had for my mother, that I feel like I'm still in that motherless house. I feel like I'm still looking for my mother. The doctrine is there and the doctrine is simple, and it's so easy for us to be continually pointed back to Reed's topics essay about her. There is one there if you haven't read it. We'll link that in the show notes. The shortest of all the essays. We have this doctrine and we have a mother in heaven. Women are speaking about their mother in heaven because we long for her. And if our voices are silenced, then our pain will be amplified. Thank you, everyone, for working with us tonight. Thank you, everyone, for sitting with us in this space. It has been a weekend of such pain. And we just felt like we really needed to speak to that. Alana, do you? I'm going to leave any. Are you fit and able to give us any final comments and lead us out? And you're on mute.
Yeah, I guess just thinking back, to growing up in the church, I don't remember specifically many folk talking about Heavenly Mother. So again, it's something that I've learned from you. I guess I've heard about her every once in a while. I know she's supposed to exist, and I say supposed to because it's not something that I was generally taught growing up. So I guess learning from you and realising the importance of a Heavenly Mother, I just can't for the life of me understand why we don't speak about her. like, I mean, I said obviously, that I've heard the common answer of, she's too sacred. Um, I'm going to be pretty blunt here. I call BS on that, and I apologise to anyone who's offended by that, but
Call it, sister.
that's
You
just
call it.
how I call it. And you read that article to me last night as we were sitting, and it did affect me, but hearing it again tonight had a totally different effect on me. To that woman who did not have a relationship with her mother, can I reach out to my Heavenly Mother? No. That poor woman's experience of not having a reasonable earthly mother, and we're being told no, that we can't have a relationship with our Heavenly Mother. Shouldn't we know her too? It,
Sister Alana, could I jump in your comments and just because I want to speak to that for a second. So in the chat, if you guys are reading the chat, I think this really needs to be acknowledged. That my mum has commented, it's a pain that she carries throughout her life. She uses the phrase, it's a pain she deserves to carry throughout her life. The one of the other aspects of Mother's Day and pedestalizing it is that the reality is there are really sucky, awful mothers out there. There are mothers who have put their children in danger, who have been abusive, all sorts of awful things. Motherhood is the thing that's being honoured. But I just wanted to speak to that no woman deserves to carry pain like that for motherhood. My mother didn't choose to not see her child. My mother longed for her child. Our Heavenly Mother, and if we celebrate all of the aspects of motherhood that we hold dearly, if let's just say, I pitch up to sacrament on Mother's Day. If I decide to put myself through that, and I am going to take on board everything that's being taught about mothers and how sacred and what the ideal is, then let's go with that. So if that's who you're telling me our Heavenly Mother is, if she is this example of strength and womanhood and self-sacrifice, she is not an abusive mother. She loves her children. She wants to be with her children, and we want to be with her, and we cannot even speak about her. Now, I don't care. And you know me, Alana, I don't get mad, I don't get angry with really about pretty much anything. But this, to forbid a child to speak to their mother, is abuse. So my mum, I cannot, because I know how motherhood works. I can't take that away from you. I wish I could, but you do not ever get to say you deserve to carry pain in my presence, okay?
no,
Because you
or
are
mine, or mine.
absolutely, because you're a mother, you're a real mother, a real woman who had real experiences, and I love you. Our
Yeah.
Heavenly Mother, we're going to have to look in that. We're going to have to look in her eyes. We're going to have to account for what didn't we even look for her? Can we even wait at the window for her?
See, I imagine that this is just my own thoughts again. Like, I imagine, like, when you're talking about that pain, you know, I imagine her in pain. And
Yes.
if she's up there being told, sorry, you can't have a relationship with your children on earth, I'm horrified at that. Like, because that's how I see it. If the church leaders here are telling us that we can't talk about her, that we can't get to know her, that we can't understand her, then in my eyes, she's been told up there that she's not allowed to have the same relationship with us.
Can you
Why
imagine?
do we have the right to get to know Jesus? Why do we have the right to get to know Heavenly Father, but we don't have the right to get to know someone who is our Heavenly Mother? Will we walk by her when we go to heaven? Will we know
Oh,
her? That's how I anticipate it. I anticipate walking by her because I don't know her. I don't get to feel her around me, because the church is saying that we can't. And And this is again some of the problems that I'm finding of being able to stay in the church and still be able to be okay with the things that might be okay, is because I'm just finding too much pain and too much hurt for so many people, and including myself, that I love, and I can't be okay with that. I can't be affiliated with a church who are causing pain to people. My understanding of a church, it's supposed to be a place of love, a place of peace, and people aren't getting that experience. And I say it to you often, I would love to be where you are, Jane, where you can still be okay with attending church and being that voice. But I guess I concern myself that I might become that too much of a vocal voice if I attend church that's not liked. But I just imagine that if this is truly God's plan, that we're being taught by our leaders that our Heavenly Mother must be up there in so much pain because she's not being given the opportunity to get to know her earthly children.
Alana, do you think that, okay, so I'm going to ask you to consider, like, what would be, how would we be blessed as a church if we started speaking about Heavenly Mother, keeping in mind that this is a living church, and if we have questions, if there's additional revelation or knowledge that we need, we're a living church. We can pray to know. So if you think about that for a second, while I just point out, based on what you're saying, if you're talking about how, being, having a place in church and being that person who, because you need to raise your voice, and I've been I just think it's so powerful what you said about, would we walk past our mother in heaven because we don't recognize her? But here's the thing, she knows us, and I imagine I imagine that longing will help us to know her, right? I do imagine that. But let's say let's say we didn't, and we're going to walk past Heavenly Mother. She who loves us would pull us in. She would put her hands on us and she would pull us in, and she would let us know, I'm the mother that you've been searching for. Now, if our Heavenly Mother has a voice that I believe that she has, if our Heavenly Mother co-created the world, if our Heavenly Mother loves us and is co-creator with God, then our Heavenly Mother has a voice which we are not hearing at the moment. And so as women speak up and express their pain, as Sister Givens teaches beautiful possibilities, then I'm hearing the voice of my Heavenly Mother in there somewhere. It's not her voice, but there are echoes of her voice. As I listen to the poetry and the work of Sister Carol Lynn Pearson, of Sister Rachel Steenblick, of all of these women who are doing incredible work and speaking to this longing that we feel, I can hear her voice. And that's why I think that if you're in a church, even when it hurts, and even when your voice is making people feel uncomfortable, I can hear Heavenly Mother in that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, what's your
I mean,
thought?
I guess as I was saying that, I was thinking, if we talk about, when I talk about Jesus, I say, he knows us, he knows our every move, he knows the things, but I still feel an element of, even though they may know all that surely they've still got to be learning and understanding us better as we live our earth life. I still think there's still an element, in my mind, I believe that there's still an element of that they're still looking down on us and seeing the things we do, even though, we're taught that, he knows us. I still believe and want to believe that there's an element of they're still learning from us. They're still seeing the changes in us, and I think that's important that she has that same experience, her Heavenly Mother.
One of my favourite things about us to do
Sorry,
this
my daughter.
podcast is it is so real, and we get to have a little bit of real life. And when Alana's daughter sneaks in for some mum hugs, or
She's supposed to
this
be
is
in bed
also
asleep,
well,
might I add.
see, this is a great time to ask for snacks when mum is busy. So it's like you know, yeah, go for a
I know
fridge
what
race
everyone
there.
can't see is that the arm's going out like, stop, go away, while I'm still
Real life.
smiling.
Because you know what, there's another thing about mothers is we sometimes we need to close the door, and we don't want to hear from our
Yeah.
kids. And that's
Yeah.
okay.
In
Heavenly
fairness, I
Mother.
usually do have her more settled for the
Oh,
podcast, but just
yeah,
things,
of course. Yeah,
we were out today
she's
and
a
time ran
angel.
away with us, so it was a bit rushed.
Yeah,
I'm
you're
just,
doing great.
it's just because I had something else that I'd wanted to say, and you know my mind, it's kind of gone now.
Well, I was asking. Well, I was asking what kind of difference do you think it would make if we in
Oh,
the church were to talk and teach more on Heavenly Mother?
well, I think again it goes along the lines of, you know, I guess this male female thing, you know, um,
So gender issues.
the men, you know, have to have a relationship with the men in heaven, you know, and we women. I'm trying to be very careful what I'm saying, I guess, and we're taught to listen to the men on earth. We're taught to do kind of what we're told. So I guess I just don't know. I just can't. I can't in my head process why. I still can't. I still struggle to understand why we can't talk about our Heavenly Mother. I can't. I can't be. I don't believe in my heart that it's God's will. I can't. I'm just going to say it. Like I was having a Honda. Say it down. No, I can't
Is it
be okay in my
okay to
heart that
say that?
Heavenly Father does not want us to not know our Heavenly Mother. I think men on this earth are making some rubbishy decisions on his behalf. And I am just going to say it. I know you're saying it's okay to say that, but you know, there is that thing out there where we're seeing many members being excommunicated for saying things like this. But you know, I've said I'm okay with it. I'm okay with it. I kind of made a joke, and it's not anything to be joking about. But you know, I said to you, I've been there, done that, wore the t-shirt. You know, I've been excommunicated before, and I know what the process is. And if that's what needs to happen to be a voice, then that's I guess what would need to happen. But yeah, it's a hard question for me to really process in the moment and think what difference would it make. Um, I don't want to be, again, I'm talking about, you know, the sexism and things like that. I don't want it to sound like, you know, that the men don't deserve to have that relationship with their Heavenly Mother. But I guess, again, it's just differentiating that need for us women to have a woman who understands, who gets us.
Mm.
I mean, you know, I hear many men saying they don't get women sometimes, you know. So, you know, Heavenly Mother gets us. She is a woman. She understands it from a woman's point of view. And so I think, I don't know, I just imagine it to be wonderful, you know. It should be wonderful. It should be wonderful that we're sitting in a church building talking about our Heavenly Mother, to feel that peace, that love, that longing that you talked about, you know, because so I understand that so many women are longing for that to happen. And this is just a recent thing for me, as I say, you know, I've never had that major feeling of needing this again, just because I think it goes back to, it wasn't something I was majorly taught growing up. But now understanding that, yeah, damn right, we deserve to talk to our Heavenly Mother. Of course we do. Of course we have the right to know who she is and understand her, and I could go on and round in circles. I guess you get the gist of what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, well, because I think it's really important that as you talk about gender, I, I mean, men aren't getting to sort of to be blessed by this either. That you know, we focus very much on gendered issues. This is a woman's longing for Heavenly Mother. We're talking about Mother's Day. We're talking, you know, and really we do ourselves such a disservice, because you know men in the church are going to be blessed by this too. If we start talking about Heavenly Mother, then what happens is we start to discuss more about gender issues, about, well, what are our divine roles? Are there divine roles? Let's explore them, but with with meat behind it. We get to think about what kind of direction we take our church. We get to think, and this is possibly a lot of the barriers to it, is, we get to talk about authority. I wonder about the idea of a female divine person that you're going to have to, as a prophet, as a bishop, as a priesthood holder, that you're accountable to a mother God. I mean, that's kind of radical from where we are right now. Laura Heath
I was
has
just
has
I was just about to
raised.
ask. I was like,
Do you
Jane,
want
this
to?
question's so totally for you. I was just about to ask you that because
Do you
I
want
couldn't
to read
answer
it?
that. Do you think talking about Heavenly Mother will open the door to polygamy again? And I was totally going to give you that question anyway because it's not something I can discuss.
I mean, I think talking about it will lead inevitably to conversations about what it forces us to dig into polygamy. It forces us to ask very uncomfortable questions. And you know what? I think it's important that we do, because these questions, discussions, they come in through the back door. I am not going to be the only person who's heard people testify that polygamy will be practiced in heaven, that we have more than one Heavenly Mother. That you have one, I have one, but they could be different. And that may be another reason why we're holding off really digging down into this. Now, I can happily say I do not have a testimony of polygamy or a testimony that we have multiple mothers in heaven. But yeah, I think talking about it will open all of that up. And so we'll have to be uncomfortable. But as we should, because when we talk about the issues that women are really facing, when we talk about what's really going on in our hearts, and not this pedestalized idea of the self-sacrificing angel mother, we're talking about a real woman with real pain. And so if we're going to do that, well, you're going to hear what the pain is. We don't get to dance around that. Yes, let's talk about it. In the comments there, I don't. Do we get to be afraid of talking about Heavenly Mother because of a doctrinal issue? Yeah. Thank you to everyone who's commented and chatted tonight, and thank you. A special shout out to my mother, who is my friend and advisor, and who I love. Thank you for walking with us. For those who've listened and don't feel the same way, awesome. And I bless your journey. But for those of us who are mourning and are in pain, we can reach out to each other. We can, you can get in touch with us. The comments and chat can continue online. But what I do feel pretty sure of, and I feel to testify of that just now, is that the door is not closed. I think while there are times when mothers need a break, where we have to close and lock the door and let kids know that we're off duty for just now, I feel like Heavenly Mother would like the door to be opened and would like us to be speaking of her and to her, and therefore applying the things that we can learn by knowing about her. Anyway, I'll let you wrap up tonight, Alana.
Sorry, I'm going to
Go.
How do we get to know her though? If we're not being given, I guess that would be my question. How can we truly get to know her if there's no information really there about her?
See,
And
this is why so just to clarify as well, we're going to be doing podcast episodes on Heavenly Mother. We had
Yeah.
planned to do that way before this weekend happened, but
Yeah.
we're mourning this weekend, so
Absolutely.
we needed to talk. Um, I think we need to be able to pray to her. I think
Yeah.
we need to be able to be taught to see her. We have lessons of how can we feel the spirit in our lives, or how can we see the hand of God in our lives. I mean, it is really that simple. Um, and you know what? Here's the thing. Let's just get honest here. Women are men too. I apologize. You know what? I'm speaking to my gender here, and so that is happening. Women are praying to their heavenly mother. Women are finding comfort in doing that. Women are expressing their testimonies, their knowledge, their connection of Heavenly Mother through art. Women are blessing each other. All of these things that are happening under the radar because we can't speak about it because our voices are silenced. I mourn that. It's not as if, like, whenever something like this something like that, like suddenly we have to make all of these changes, or the manuals need to change to include, something. Yeah, that'll be lovely, but I think just open your eyes and see the see what's being done. Listen to what the sisters are talking about. Carol Lynn Pearson has done so much. There is a fantastic essay, from a research team at BYU that Sister Rachel Steinblick, another poetess in Zion, had been working on, called A Mother There. There is so much out there, but we are. It's become the secret, like we don't really like to talk about polygamy. We don't really like to. She's still a controversial subject. Our Heavenly Mother is still a controversial subject. So I say, just, you know what? I live in a motherless house. Can we open the door and just let her in because she's there? Can we open the curtains and just start seeing her? Can we and our you know what I have to do? This is what I have to do. There is a local Roman Catholic church midway up my hill. I mean, I could fall out of bed and land in this beautiful place, and it's reverent. It has lovely stained glass art. It's a place where we'll go and spend a little bit of sacred downtime. I feel the presence of God there. It's not my spiritual home, but I find, it's a good place to just be able to feel the spirit, little oasis. And out in the grounds, there is really, really nice gardens. And I will go there and I will feel the spirit. Like whenever you're in the temple grounds and you've got that, it's sort of architecturally designed for you to feel the spirit. And I was thinking a lot about that as I would spend time just sort of sitting up in this garden. I particularly go when it's really late at night or when I'm anxious, and foxes start to come out and rabbits will have a peek, and it's so full of life and nature and creation, cycling through it. It's just beautiful, and there I feel the presence of Heavenly Mother. And then maybe about 2 years ago now, they had unearthed this statue that had been stored away for a really long time, a statue of the Virgin Mary, Our Lady of Lourdes, and they've placed this life-size statue in the middle of this green area, and when I go there, I talk to Heavenly Mother. And I know that's not Heavenly Mother, but it's a whisper and an echo. And I feel like, oh, you're so lucky, you people who can worship this way, because you have a divine feminine, and while we have a slightly different theology, but there's something concrete you can hold on to. There is a thing I can go and look at and think, Heavenly Mother, I miss you. Heavenly Mother, I can feel your presence in the trees and the creation all around me and the life. And I love that. And people will go and leave offerings of flowers, and they have that. They have that. So
And
yeah,
we
that's
need it.
that's my. We need to talk. Yeah, we just need to be
Absolutely.
talking about it.
All
So
right.
yes, that was your question.
So just aware that we've been going for about an hour and a half now. So again, we just want to thank everyone who's joined us either via Facebook or YouTube to 21st Century Saints.
Click that little bell.
The bell, yeah. So yeah, basically, just thank you so much for tuning in. We are so thankful that we have people who are willing to listen, and especially since we're just starting out, and we just, I guess, we saw the need to talk about a lot of these things. So just a little reminder for our podcast on Wednesday. We have Nemo and Peter Blakely, one not to be missed. Share it far and wide, get the word out there.
We're going to get
So
controversial again. Yep.
So Wednesday at 8.
Wednesday at 8.
Wednesday at 8.
Right here.
So we hope to have you tune in then. Thank you for all your wonderful comments and all your wonderful questions. And just have a great week and have a great rest of your Sunday. And we will speak to you all soon. Thank you.
Bye, everyone.